While the deployment of Italian naval vessels in Libyan waters is being contested within the North African nation, the parliament, which is based in Eastern Libya, warned that such a step would be as good as exporting the migrant crisis to the country if and when the migrants are intercepted and sent back. The Tobruk Parliament also criticized the internationally recognized Prime Minister Fayez Serraj for striking the deal with Italy in the first place.
Such agreements are only valid if they are through the legislative authority represented by the Libyan House of Representatives and not by an executive authority that has not yet gained confidence, and which is in a manner that preserves national sovereignty and does not allow violation of the territorial waters of Libya.
Now that lawmakers have given their approval, 2 of Italy's naval vessels will be working alongside the Libyan Coast Guard. Italy's defense force is stressing its ships won't create a blockade preventing all migrant ships from leaving, but rather they will only help train and give technical assistance to Libya's Coast Guard. Still, though, NGOs are very critical of this plan. That's because migrants picked up by the Libyan Coast Guard in Libyan waters are returned to Libyan soil, where NGOs say the conditions are absolutely dire. Meanwhile, NGOs are also criticizing Italy for impounding a German NGO ship that was rescuing migrants. Italy says it violated a new code of conduct which requires armed police to board migrant rescue ships. The code of conduct also prevents rescue ships from transferring migrants from one vessel to another. So that means NGO rescue ships will have to make more trips to shore. Italy has struggled dealing with the massive number of migrants who've arrived over the past few years. So far this year alone, 94,000 migrants have reached Italy via the Mediterranean. Kevin Uzbek, CGTN, Brussels.
Well, indeed, some significant developments there as far as the migrant crisis is concerned. Let's bring you some analysis and further details on these issues. First, let's speak to my colleague Adel Al-Muruki in Cairo for the latest from the Libyan perspective. Adel, indeed, Libya's internationally recognized Prime Minister had given the green light for Italy to deploy its navy to those Libyan waters. But we know, of course, the Eastern-based parliament is opposed to this deal. What is the implication of this disagreement?
Well, it just deepens the division among the Libyan rivals and the 2 main governments in the eastern, backed by the parliament and Marshal Khalifa Haftar. And on the other hand, of course, Fayez Serraj, the prime minister or the head of the presidential council backed by the United Nations. So it's another opportunity to show the differences and also to show how each party has been struggling to get international support only to his side. So one of the main criticism to the deal with Italy is mainly because Fayez Serraj from the Eastern government has made the deal without including Khalifa Haftar, the general and the leader of the Libyan National Army, or including the Eastern Parliament. So again, they rejected it and they considered it a breach to Libya's sovereignty, which also was a similar accusation from Fayez Serraj or from the Western powers, the Western Libyan tribes in general, when the Eastern Parliament coordinated with Egypt airstrikes inside its territories. So it seems that whenever there is a political deal between one of the 2 governments and any other country, the other will go in and criticize it severely, mainly because they want the deal to be with them.
And Adel, what's the view in as far as the region is concerned? We know, of course, Libya's migrant crisis is spilling over into countries like Tunisia and, of course, Egypt. So what is the sort of regional perspective on Italian naval vessels patrolling the Mediterranean now?
Well, there hasn't been any official reaction from Egypt or Libya's neighbors, the prime countries that are affected from the crisis. But overall, whenever there is a situation going on in Libya, of course, it is of prime concern. Egypt, for example, has been one of the main hubs or substitute hubs, if I may say, to Libya's Mediterranean route to South Europe. And therefore, whenever there is something going on, particularly if it curbs the flow of migrants from Libya to Europe, it could indicate that there might be a reverse flow back to Egypt, which the Egyptian armed forces have been having significant control during the past year, through which it has tremendously curbed this flow and returned the focus back to Libya. So coordination is necessary. Egypt is always in coordination, but also let's not forget that the Eastern Parliament and Khalifa Haftar's the Libyan National Army, they are strong allies to Egypt, and therefore it may be considered a reflection. Their rejection could be related to what the Egyptian government see, or in one sense or another, Egypt may be supporting this view, although not explicitly saying it. But overall, there is a concern of the growing number of migrants inside Libya, which means that they could go to the neighboring countries, and that this will be a source of an alarm. So yes, it is illegal migration, but in a sense, some analysts believe it could be a relief to these countries that this mass of illegal migrants are not staying in their country. Instead, they're remaining in Libya.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that perspective. Adel Al-Muruki, live for us there in Cairo.